from University of Pretoria. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, Ambassador, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody. One doesn't know where to start to speak about this tour de force that Professor Zeleza has produced. When he asked me to write a blurb, my inclination was to refuse because I thought that better placed people and more accomplished scholars could only grace the blurb of a book of a man of his intellect, of his stature, a global African of almost unparalleled, but of course he has peers of unparalleled scholarship and insight into what our continent, the continent's history both in the sense of the past, history in the sense of the living present, and also the prospects for the future. And I think also what then also attracted and excited me about his book was the title of the book and his focus on disruptions. Why so? I think that one of the things that made me really both intellectually frightened and generally worried when the COVID moment struck, and we know it's not a moment, it's something that we don't know when it will end, was the propensity for many people, including scholars, to look at the COVID disruption as a medical disease and also as something that was only of concern, something that had only been caused by a virus, the coronavirus. What I thought I saw, but I was not sure because most of the dominant discourses at that time did not look at disruptions as something that has been happening since the beginning of this century. So when I saw the title saying Africa and the disruptions of the 21st century, it made me have the confidence that if a scholar of Professor Zeleza can say so, it is interesting to delve into his text and also to think that actually we have to think of that what we're facing is multiple ongoing, overlapping, and intersectional disruptions that have manifested themselves very sharply in the early 20th century, but also have a very long history, as his book actually demonstrates to us. And that he situated himself, as many have said, Professor Amina, Professor Fumi Olishakan, he has located himself as a global citizen, but the one who has been rooted, not only in Africa, but also so in the global north. What I found attractive and what is attractive about these essays is this notion, therefore, of multiple ongoing disruptions that actually are, in some sense, is very contradictory. Let's take the technology conundrum. Today, I can see right now on my screen, 178 participants at this book launch. If it was a physical book launch at a particular location, it might not have actually attracted 179 people. It might have attracted more if it was a large conference. But technology has enabled all of us around the world today to be able to sit around and participate in this book launch. But I'm not a positivist person, nor is Professor Paul Zeleza in all he's saying that technology only has positive ends. The technology we're using today also represents a frozen moment for us, that we cannot interact as human beings. We cannot fully develop and engage our humanity because we are now stuck behind computer screens. And so that is what is very, very exciting about this book. It captures the contradictions, the nuances, the difficulties, the conundrums of Africa in the 21st century. And also it's the kind of scholarship that, if you like, asks us to rethink the scholarship we've been engaged in, build on all of the insights of the giants, some of who have fallen. Professor Amin, I think, was referring to some of them, and those who are still living. That this kind of scholarships that they built to illuminate earlier centuries, the 20th century, the 19th century, and further where we have originated as Africans. It's a kind of scholarship that in a sense sees multiple things happening at the same times and seeks to illuminate us and to connect the dots that we would normally not see, whether they are economic and political. And I'm not suggesting any kind of boundaries between what is the political and economic, the social, the cultural and also our relationship with nature and the environment. And so what made me further excited therefore about this text?
Prof, can I just make a comment? Can we all mute our mics because there is some open mic which is interfering with your presentation? Please, let's all mute our mics.
Thank you. Okay. So on this theme that I'm on about what kind of scholarship does one require now to deal with multiple ongoing intersectional and overlapping disruptions is, in a very nuanced, in a very intellectually exciting and provocative way, has been presented by Professor Zeleza. I think it's a kind of scholarship that calls for us actually not just to adopt critical theory, whatever one means by that, but I think a transdisciplinary kind of scholarship, transdisciplinary in multiple ways, a scholarship that does not limit itself to borders and boundaries. Hence, this text actually moves between the United States and the global north, if you like, into the south, into the global south, our continent, Africa, and so on. But also a scholarship where Professor Zeleza does not remain as just as some of us might, or some might know him as a historian. He actually moves effortlessly into somebody who is a historian, who is a critical sociologist, critical political economist, a person who's critical of technologies, a person who's critical of cultures. A broad range and a rich, layered theoretical tradition emerges from his transdisciplinary practice. I think we'll be failing Professor Zeleza and the giants that have fallen, that Professor Amina referred to, and others referred to, and Fumi referred to earlier on, if we do not see his text, his book, as a call to reimagine the African academy, and to reimagine, of course, using the decolonial lenses and beyond, and also its relationship both to the local as well as to the global. So, age-old question, as many who are senior to me will tell you, what is the role of the African university? And also, how has the African university, in a sense, been complicit, implicated, embedded in those things that have not actually, in a sense, not using the word in a reductionist sense, the development of our continent holistically. So I think for me, this is a moment, and this text is one that is very key, Africa and the disruptions of the 21st century, for us to produce, to reimagine the African academy as at the center of new transformative thinking, actions, and practices that, if you like, might be at the center of the rebirth of the continent, and the rebirth of the continent, not as supplicant to any other continent, but also as part of a global renewal movement that, in a sense, will save humanity and in harmony with nature. Allow me to stop the chair. I could go on with this because I've read it twice or thrice now, and each time I see new layers that I did not see before. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kupe. That was also quite very,